The new game Firebreak, released by Remedy Entertainment, might possibly be the first real Friend-Slop game. The term Friend-Slop doesn't really have a defined definition, but I'll sum it up to what I think is the best definition for it. Basically, Friend-Slop to me is a game that is fun while playing with friends, but is not actually a good game. Friend-Slop is actually a term that was started before Firebreak was released, starting with the release of Lethal Company games, mainly Repo. The reason why the term started was because a lot of Lethal Company type games are really fun with friends, but they aren't really fun when you play solo. However, the big takeaway from this is I don't actually think Repo is a Friend-Slop game, since the game is actually really fun and a well-made game. Sure, playing solo on Repo isn't really that fun, but it's still a genuinely good game that is well-made. However, with the release of Firebreak, I think this might actually be one of the best examples of Friend-Slop we have ever seen. The game is a bit fun, but really only because you're playing with your friends. But if you think about what you're actually playing, it's really just a very half-assed game. First, the game is super unfinished. The game is missing a lot of basic things, like a text chat or an in-game voice chat. The game progression is also really slow and repetitive, with you needing to go back to old missions that you've already done multiple times just to get the stuff you need for another upgrade. Combat is also a big issue, with gunplay feeling really mediocre and enemies being just really boring. Bosses who spawn are just killed with a few shots of the bolt action. Side note, did none of the developers check the team damage done when shooting your teammates with the bolt action? I mean, a single shot to a teammate does 60% damage. Really? Another big point is that the game only has 5 different missions, none of which I really found fun at all. I mean, the whole game really feels like you're just working a really shitty job. A few examples of things you will be doing in Firebreak is shooting post-it notes, cleaning generators, or pushing a cart. And there are games that do this job setting really well. The best example being Deep Rock, which the whole point is to mine materials for your company. What's the big difference between Firebreak and Deep Rock, you might ask? Deep Rock is actually fun and a well-made game, where Firebreak just feels like a very unfinished game. And one of the biggest arguments I've heard when people support this game is that it's on Game Pass, so it's okay to be unfinished. First off, the game is $40, which is a pretty hefty tag for a game that only has about 8 hours max of content. Second, is it really okay for a game to come out unfinished just because it's on Game Pass? It just feels like they know the game isn't gonna do well, so they just throw it on Game Pass so they can make some money back because they know the game isn't gonna do well. Nonetheless, I think we are expected to see more Friend-Slop type games, especially on Game Pass. It's easy for companies to half-ass their games and just throw it on Game Pass to make a quick buck, instead of going all the way to make sure that their game isn't just fun because you're playing with your friends. So before your refund timer is out on Steam, I think it's important for everyone to think about if the game you're playing is actually a well-made game and fun to play, or if it's fun just because you're hanging out with your buddies. Since this was a shorter video than I usually do, I'll have a short outro. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.